Hello, my name is Raheem, and you're watching Save Our Streets TV. Today we will be honoring the veterans who served and protected our countries. We have here today Robert G. Porter. Today we would like to ask you some questions about the military. How did you get into the military?
I got into the military after high school. I did some odd jobs, worked at Burger King, and realized that wasn't where I wanted to work the rest of my life. So I took the ASVAB, the Armed Forces entrance exam, similar to taking the SATs to get into college. And from my score, they determined what jobs I could have in the military. So the Navy offered me to run their nukes. The Army offered me to be a helicopter pilot. I don't remember what the Air Force offered. And the Marine Corps said, you can be a Marine. So I joined the Marine Corps.
What was your childhood like?
My childhood? I had a pretty interesting childhood. I was an orphan. My mother had to give me up for adoption. And I was adopted by my family, who raised me. They were both doctors. And so I had a pretty good childhood. I got to travel a little bit. My family's from Denmark and Sweden, so I got to go to Europe a couple times and visit there and travel around there.
Were you upset about being an orphan? And did you like your new family?
Being an orphan's different. Several of my friends, my really good friends over the years, have also been adopted. So there's a kind of a camaraderie there. There's a bond that we have. There were times where I was angry because my mother gave me up, but I was fortunate that I had a very good family and they loved me a lot and they told me about being adopted, so it was never hidden, nothing was a secret. And then in 1998, thanks to the internet and Ancestry.com, I actually found my biological mother and we're now really good friends.
Why did you choose that branch of military?
Well, the typical answer everybody gives is that the Marine Corps is the best. After being in the Marines and having trained with the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, and even the Coast Guard, I realized that my personality was suited for the Marine Corps. If I had joined the Army, I never would have made it.
What was the daily life as a Marine?
The daily life as a Marine changes. It also depends on the job you do in the Marine Corps. Every job that you see in the civilian world, be it a banker, be it doing these interviews, we have our own news crews like this. So each job is similar to this. The only difference is that in the Marine Corps, you're in the military on top of doing your civilian job. So there's other things that you have to do other than just being on TV.
So the Army's like its own civilization.
Yep, it's its own civilization. Everything that you have here as a civilian, we have in the military. So if you want to go to the gym and work out, there's a guy there that can be your personal trainer at the gym. If you want to go swimming, at a place like Lake George, there's areas where we have recreation and have boats just like Lake George. You want to go skiing, we have training to go skiing. One of the places I trained was in Bridgeport, and part of the training, as I told you just a second ago, was living in a snow cave for a week.
What was some sad, when you were really sad, maybe someone that was like a really good teammate or something died, or something really sad happened in the military or something really bad?
I would say that the saddest moment for me in the military was September 11th, when the terrorist attacks occurred in the United States.
Oh.
As being in the military at that time, I felt that we should have been able to prevent that. It reminded me of Pearl Harbor, December 7th, and it's another attack that I felt that the United States should have been able to stop and prevent. So that was my saddest time.
Well, what was life after the military? Was your mom? What did your mom and dad feel, and what did your friends feel?
It's interesting. people live every day in their hometowns. They live with their friends and their family, and so to them every day is the same. Nothing changes. When you join the military and you go away for a year or 4 years, or in my case 20 years, and you come home, all those little tiny changes that took place every day that you don't notice, I see as big changes. So an example was Crossgates was a small mall, and it doubled in size while I was gone. And so that's a big change. But when I talked to my family, it was just something that happened, and it just occurred, and so they never really noticed there was a big change. So one of the difficult things is everybody looks at me and says that I've changed. But in fact, everybody changes. Nobody stays the same. Everybody grows, everybody learns, everybody changes. But you don't see it when you're with your friends every day. It just is more observant, more prevalent when you have been gone for a while and come home.
What were like? Did you have any other jobs, or what did you wanna be? What did you want to be a soldier all your life?
My mother jokes that that was what I wanted to be, because I'd do drawings when I was a kid, and a lot of them were towards the military. So yes, it was something that I thought about for a long time. But I also wanted to make sure that that's what I actually wanted to do. So when I got out of high school, I didn't immediately join the Marine Corps. I decided to try and see what it'd be like to live on my own, not in my parents' house, take care of myself, pay my bills. And as I said, I saw my future, and that was going to be, working in, minimum wage jobs, and I didn't want that. So I joined the Marine Corps.
How did your family feel about you going to the military?
My father survived World War II in Denmark, the occupation by the Germans. My mother survived World War II in the Philippines, being occupied by the Japanese. And so they had firsthand knowledge of how it was to live in a country that had been conquered by the enemy. And so even though my father really wanted me to go to college, he did support me being in the Marine Corps.
Do you have any messages to the kids? Do you have anything you want to say?
I can say anything. I could talk all day long. I mean,
Yeah.
You just put a camera in front of me or sit down and talk. Messages, are difficult depending on who you're talking to, because not everybody is willing to hear the message that you have to say at the time that you tell them the message. I could tell you something today that you should do because you said you're interested in joining the military.
Yeah.
And in 10 years, you might actually really understand what I say today and agree with it, or your whole life may have changed in those 10 years and that message may mean nothing to you anymore.
That doesn't mean anything. That's confusing. You say,
Well, life is very confusing. I mean, when I got out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had an idea I wanted to be in the military, but I wasn't 100% sure. And so I'm sitting there trying to figure out what to do with my life. I'm 18 years old. Well, 20 years later, I'm 42 years old, and I'm in the same exact situation I was when I was 18. I'm now out of the military. I have my whole life ahead of me, and I can do anything I want, and it's the same as if I was 18.
It's crazy how life changes like that.
Yep. That's why I was saying that today's message for you could mean the world to you tomorrow, or it could be nothing because you've changed and the world has changed. You had a lot of other questions.
Yeah, I got a lot.
Well, ask them.
What guns did you use?
What firearms did I use?
Firearms, yeah.
Okay. So as a military policeman, you see the police that drive around Schenectady, right? And they have a pistol.
Yeah.
So as an MP, I carried a 38, a 45, and a 9mm. We also had shotguns and M16s. My other job as an MP was to go into a combat zone like Iraq. And there we had the 50 caliber machine gun, the Mark 19 grenade launcher, the 240 machine gun, the AT-4 rocket, and the Laws rocket.
Did you use any like how good were you at like aiming? Like were you good?
How good of a shot was I?
Yeah.
Okay. So in my 21 years, I had to qualify every year, except for when I was in Iraq and except for when I was in Missouri for 3 years. So I had to qualify, out of the 20 years, I had to qualify 16 times. Out of the 16 times, I was an expert with the pistol 11 times, and I was an expert with the rifle 10 times. And I shot the rifle from 300 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards, and 500 yards. So that's 5 football fields without a scope,
Without a scope.
with a metal sight. The target I was looking at, the actual target that held the target was a frame. The frame of the target was smaller than my pinky fingernail
Smaller than your pinky fingernail.
Yep.
With an iron sight,
with iron sights. 500 yards. 5
500
football
yards.
fields away.
Just an iron sight.
And I would hit the target 10 out of 10 times.
10 out of 10.
Yeah,
That was amazing.
that was a pretty good shot.
Yeah. Like, did you, like, what do you think about the current war situation, like right now?
Which one would you be discussing? Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria,
North Korea.
North Korea.
Yes.
Okay, I spent several months in South Korea. I trained there with the South Koreans. And they are a great people. They're very appreciative of the United States. They support our military being there to protect them. North Korea is not as well off as South Korea, and we should do everything that we can to help them keep their freedom.
What do you think of, like, our firearms now and how they have advanced?
How do I think of firearms have advanced? Well, when I first joined the Marine Corps, we had the M16A1, which was a good weapon, and it wasn't as accurate as the A2. And then it was made even more accurate with the M16A4. And so generally I see them becoming more accurate, which for my purposes is good, because if I'm in Iraq or North Korea, say something happens in Korea, and I'm trying to shoot at a soldier, I have a better chance of hitting that soldier and not hitting somebody who's innocent that shouldn't be hit. So for me, it's a good thing. I want to be able to have it more accurate, be able to shoot further, and do what it's supposed to do so that everybody else is safer.
Thank you for answering the questions that I had, and you've been just amazing today.
Well, thank you.
Well, you're watching Save Our Streets. I'm Raheem. You're watching Save Our Streets TV, and one more time, I'd like to thank the veterans for serving and protecting our country. Hope you all had a good Veterans Day. This is Raheem signing out.